So let's get into the show itself. Obviously, like with any of the reviews of the shows that we review, this isn't going to be exactly in a linear story of how the show went. More of a case of let's get into the big stories and really the nitty-gritty of the show. So one of the biggest stories, if not the biggest story coming out of last night's show, was the return of the WWE Champion Brock Lesnar along with his advocate Paul Heyman to Monday Night Raw. We haven't seen Brock since just after Survivor Series, after he defeated Rey Mysterio. So it's been a couple of months since we've seen the Beast back in a WWE ring. So he was out with Paul Heyman. Obviously, we had what feels quite formulaic Paul Heyman promo. That's my, there's a lot to criticise, isn't there, about Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman about, when Brock shows up, Brock's schedule, should he be a WWE champion? Let's put that all to a side. From when he does show up, the big criticism of mine is that the Paul Heyman promo, who is, I'm not going to criticise Paul Heyman. I think he's up there with Bobby the Brain Heenan for one of the best managers of all time. He's up there for one of the best promos of all time, let alone in WWE today. But it feels ever since, 2014, 2015, that a lot of Paul Heyman's promos when it comes to Brock Lesnar have just been copy and paste, cookie cutter promos. But he tried to, jazz things up a bit. New year, of course. And I also think when Paul Heyman is cutting these promos now, that he's the executive director of Monday Night Raw, that there's a lot of pressure on him anyway. But there's a lot of pressure on him now because when you're telling people, when you're scripting verbiage or laying out the creative direction of the show, if you come out and you cut a shitty ass promo that the crowd shits on, who's not to want to take direction from Paul Heyman? But a lot of his promos have to be strong. This was a strong promo. He started off by saying there was a bit of a boo reaction, a heel reaction, shall we say, to Brock Lesnar. To which Paul Heyman responded, "Happy New Year to you too, bitches." Nice way to start 2020. They go on about who could be facing Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship at the Royal Rumble. That was the question coming into the show, wasn't it? Who's going to be facing Brock Lesnar for the title of the Royal Rumble? Paul Heyman says that there's nobody man enough or worthy enough to face Lesnar for the WWE Championship on Raw, SmackDown, or NXT. Remember NXT there. So they say they're going to do something unprecedented, or Brock Lesnar wants to do something unprecedented, and that is that Brock Lesnar will be entering the Royal Rumble as the WWE Champion, but he will be entering as number one. Now, they call this unprecedented, first time ever. It's the way they phrased it made sure that it was unprecedented and first time ever. You've had obviously people win from number one. Shawn Michaels comes to mind. But no one who's ever purposely entered at number one. Not a case of like with Roman Reigns back in 2016 when they're told you're entering at number one. No one's ever gone, I'm entering at number one because I want to prove a point, sort of thing. That is unprecedented. And the fact that he is the WWE Champion as well also adds to the unprecedented element of it. Now, the first question that came to my mind is the WWE Championship on the line? It would appear that it isn't. He's not that stupid that he's going to enter the Royal Rumble at one and defend his WWE title. So it's not a case of the Ric Flair Royal Rumble win when he wins the WWE Championship. It's not a case of when Roman Reigns had to defend the championship at the Royal Rumble. So there isn't a title on the line. Obviously, the question then becomes, what if Brock Lesnar wins? Does he get a Universal title shot at WrestleMania? Could he imagine if he went for the NXT Championship at WrestleMania? I don't think we have to think that far ahead because I don't think Brock Lesnar is going to win. Realistically, if he enters at number one, what are the intervals now between entries? Are they 90 seconds? 2 minutes? Royal Rumble match is usually about an hour long. I'm telling you now, Brock Lesnar ain't working 60 minutes. I would be stunned. This is the same guy who's had 5-minute matches against the likes of Braun Strowman and Samoa Joe in the main event of pay-per-views when he was defending the Universal Championship. Brock ain't going 60 minutes. So I would think, even though this adds a lot of hype to the Rumble, it also says to me there ain't no way, as Vince McMahon would say, no chance in hell that Brock Lesnar's going to win this one. So then it would become, obviously, this is going to set up Brock Lesnar's WrestleMania match, isn't it? Whoever is going to eliminate Brock Lesnar in the Royal Rumble is going to be the next guy who is deemed, in Paul Heyman's words, worthy enough to face Brock Lesnar for the WWE Championship at WrestleMania, or just face Brock Lesnar in general. So who could that be? Now, it's been rumoured for ever since 3 or 4 weeks now that obviously Cain Velasquez, who we last saw on WWE TV at Crown Jewel when he got his ass kicked in about 90 seconds by Brock Lesnar. The rumour is that Cain Velasquez is going to be working the Royal Rumble. It would appear that we haven't seen the last of Brock and Cain. So Cain Velasquez could be the guy who enters the Royal Rumble match, maybe at, I don't know, number 10 or something like that, who would be the one to eliminate Brock Lesnar. That could happen. I think they could be going towards that. My concern would be that, you could get a Royal Rumble 2015 scenario on your hands where he could get booed out of the building. The wrestling fan just doesn't care about Cain Velasquez at the moment. The best thing for Cain Velasquez, in my opinion, when he does show back up, is to turn heel and almost become another version of Brock Lesnar, where he just kicks ass, shows up where he wants to. Okay, the crowd's already turned on him. You ain't going to make him a babyface. So obviously that throws out that Cain Velasquez might be the one to eliminate Brock. Sets up their match at WrestleMania. Now, if that is the direction that they are going to go, I would hope that it's not for the WWE Championship. It doesn't need to be for the WWE Championship. The WWE Championship being in that match doesn't add any extra hype to a match that I don't want to see anyway. So I would hope that that's not going to be the case. But then how would you get the title off Brock? So it adds up a lot of these hypothetical scenarios. Who's going to be the person to eliminate Brock? Who's Brock going to be facing at WrestleMania? There's lots of questions here. I mentioned the unpredictable nature of this show this week. So it's interesting. It keeps you guessing, and it keeps the fans on our toes. Now, obviously, that said, the predictable element would be Cain Velasquez. If they do go that route, I would be disappointed. I think the majority of the fans would be disappointed. But until then, we can still speculate, which is part of the fun of professional wrestling, isn't it? Now, other people would say, why is he in this match? It's a waste of Brock Lesnar. He should be in a WWE Championship match at the Royal Rumble. Why isn't he defending it against the likes of Ricochet or Drew McIntyre or blah, blah, blah? I would counter that by saying Brock Lesnar in that match against a Ricochet, against a Drew McIntyre, Brock Lesnar would win and he would squash them. You look at, I don't know, how many of Brock's defences over the last 3 or 4 years. Look at Finn Balor at last year's Royal Rumble. Look at Braun Strowman, about the million times that Brock Lesnar has beaten him. Having Lesnar in that scenario wasn't the best for their career because they fell off the face of the earth afterwards and lost any momentum that they had. So having Lesnar in this scenario, where he's in the Royal Rumble match, is probably for the best. Probably for the best. I'll throw out a little bit of a curveball as well, that, I mentioned that Cain Velasquez might be the guy to show up and eliminate him. Some people have speculated Tyson Fury might be the guy as well. But I would like to see, now Paul Heyman did mention NXT. This is what I referenced NXT for. I'd like to see maybe a Keith Lee enter the Royal Rumble and throw out Brock Lesnar. He had an absolute star-making moment at Survivor Series, didn't he? When he was the last remaining member of Team NXT and he faced off against Roman Reigns. I mean, that finished that match. Oh, it just about blew the roof off the Allstate Arena in Chicago. So, is he a credible threat to Brock Lesnar? Absolutely. Absolutely. Keith Lee, his size and his athleticism is typical of a modern-day heavyweight wrestler, fighter. We talk about WWE being the land of the giants back in the 80s, but, I mean, now, and even the 90s, I guess, but now, to find a legitimate heavyweight of the likes of Brock Lesnar, there really aren't that many around in WWE. Someone that's credible that you go, hey, they could take Brock Lesnar, and Keith Lee is a guy. He's super athletic, so he's going to bump his ass off for Brock Lesnar. And because of his size, because of his athleticism, he can make Brock Lesnar legitimately sell for him, or have a credible Brock Lesnar selling for him. And whenever Brock Lesnar sells in his matches, it's just money. It's just absolute money. So Keith Lee would be the one I want. WWE doesn't tend to give us what we want. So it could be Cain Velasquez. But like I said, it's unpredictable and it keeps us on our toes. That for me is a win.